So we talked about 401ks in the headlines, Loren, but we should make a clarification here for people because yes, 401k, a popular employer-sponsored plan, but there's other plans that apply to what we're going to talk about today.
Really, for the purposes of this show, we're saying 401k just for simplicity reasons, but really when we're talking about 401k, we're talking about any typical employer plan. Could be a 403b plan, could be a 457 plan. So if you don't have a 401k, but you have another employer plan, all the same conversation that we're having today could be relevant to your situation as well.
Okay, so the IRS made some changes in the 80s that made 401k plans a lot more popular. But before that, it was the pension. And really, if you had a pension, it was kind of a nice thing and pretty simple to manage.
It was a really nice thing, and it was very simple to manage for pension participants because they didn't have to manage it. Really, what you had to do as a pension participant is just give 30 years of your life to the same employer, and then you had this pension, this annuity income once you retired. And that's how my grandpa retired. My grandpa worked at Ford Motor Company his entire career, and in the mid-'80s he retired, and Grandma and Grandpa had their Social Security income, and they had his pension income, and they had a little bit of savings. And I remember they traveled for most of their retirement, even a little bit in their pre-retirement, traveled around the country in their motorhome and had a great retirement. It was very simple.
Yeah, and when it was time to retire, you took the money from the pension. You only had a couple of options for what to do with it.
Yeah, the responsibility, as we've seen it shift from the pension to the 401k, it really has shifted more to us as individuals. The pension was fairly simple. Loren, you mentioned put the time in. There it is. You're going to have that lump sum, or more common previously was the payment stream, the monthly annuity that you would receive. Now when it comes to the 401k, a lot more decisions to be made. We see a lot of times where people don't do step one. They don't even participate or enroll to start the 401k and create that account. So you've got to create the account, you've got to understand all of the moving pieces of the 401k, make some decisions on the investments, identify how much you need to contribute, think about pre-tax or Roth if you have that option. So there's just a lot more that you need to be thinking about, and as I mentioned, the responsibility really falls on us as individuals.
And it's a lot harder for people to get started because in the old pension days, you didn't have to make those contributions, the employer did it, where now, when people are getting started and have first availability with the 401k plan, there's a lot of other things fighting for that money, right? Maybe they're raising a family, maybe they're trying to buy a house or just afford their house. Inflation can go up and down. Right now it's really high. So there's a lot of things competing for this disposable income, and for many people it can be hard to get started with that plan.
Yeah, so the people we're talking to today probably have a 401k. So you're getting ready to retire. Maybe you're retired. So we're going to talk about what to do with the 401k. And we're going to get into some of the options that you have and the advantages and the disadvantages. But Loren, before you could ever make a decision about any part of your retirement, you've got to look at it with a lot of other pieces of the retirement puzzle, see how they all come together.
These decisions that people make with their retirement plan really need to be comprehensive, and we try to recommend avoiding making siloed decisions, meaning that whether you roll your 401k or you keep it or you cash it out, or what you do with your Social Security decisions or options that you have, all of those are better as a comprehensive look. And so our retirement plan, we call it your Merkle plan, involves 6 different components. And the first one is the lifestyle plan. So when we first sit down with a couple or have that 15-minute retirement checkup call, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how do you want to fill your time on a day-to-day basis once you now have a lot more freedom and a lot more free time on your side. And then the other 5 components are all the financial components that help you afford this lifestyle, retirement lifestyle that you want. So that's, of course, the income plan. When you retire, where's the income going to come from? Social Security, investments, maybe you have a pension. The tax plan, how do you mitigate the impact of taxes? Many retirees' retirement tax bill is sky high. It's just how do you identify that, and then the strategies necessary. Then, of course, we have the healthcare, the legacy plan, and then the investment plan. All of that fits into your Merkle plan, your comprehensive retirement plan.
Okay, let's go back to the 401k. So I've retired. I have a 401k with an employer, maybe a couple of 401ks. I've basically got, Chawn, 4 options what I can do with that 401k.
Yeah, when you have job changes, and our focus really today here is about retirement, but when you have the opportunity to have access to your 401k or 403b, as we mentioned, generally 4 main options. One option being to cash it out. If you're not at retirement stage, that might be something we try to avoid just because of penalties and taxes. We're talking about being at that retirement stage, like I said, so cashing it out needs to be part of that overall plan that you talked about, Loren. We can leave it at the current plan. That's going to be one of the items that we focus on today. We can move it out to an IRA, which is going to be another one of the options that we focus on. Or you can, if you're able to, you can move it to your new employer plan. So again, we're at the stage of life where we're talking about hitting that retirement stage of life. So we're going to focus on the two options, whether it's leave it at your current 401k, leave it in there, or move it out to an IRA.
Yeah, because Loren, sometimes people retire from their first career, then they find themselves doing maybe something that they've always thought about doing, and it becomes a full-time job, and they do have another 401k. So we should acknowledge that sometimes rolling works even in those retirement years.
Yeah, we're seeing what we call a phased retirement more and more than what we ever have before, and that's essentially you leave your employer, retire, but retirement doesn't necessarily today mean that you're not going to do some form of work for another employer. And when you go to another employer and you work part-time, or some people actually work more closer to full-time, but it's just something that you enjoy more than what you did before, you may have an employer plan available to you. That's where that decision point comes into focus as well. Thank you for watching this clip of Retiring Today, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have questions about your retirement plan, take advantage of the complimentary 15-minute retirement checkup phone call.